What are you doing?
I'm walking across America
Why are you doing that?
because poker almost ruined my life. Start with that.
Meet Michael. 7 months ago, Michael and his two dogs, Jack and Buddy, left Seattle, Washington on a 4,000-mile journey across the country, on foot. Like many people over the last decade, Michael fell in love with online poker. Unfortunately, online poker didn't love him back. He decided to walk across the country in an attempt to share his story with others who also fell victim to the game. His destination is Boston, where he will speak at the National Convention for Problem Gambling in June. Meet Dusty. Dusty is a millionaire. He made his money playing poker online. Known by his screen name, Leatherass, Dusty has earned over $4 million in 7 years. He is a sponsored poker pro at PokerStars.net, a poker columnist for Card Player magazine. He hosts a daily podcast discussing poker and is the author of 2 books. You guessed it, on poker. Dusty and Michael may seem different at first, but they share one distinct similarity. Online poker has changed their lives. In 2003, a no-name accountant from Tennessee outlasted 846 others and turned $40 into $2.5 million by winning the World Series of Poker. He gained entry into the main event by winning a poker tournament online. His story unfolded in front of millions of people on ESPN. Days later, everyone knew the name Chris Moneymaker. Those of us who remember watching were all thinking the same thing. That could be me. After all, most of us are Chris Moneymakers, middle management, underpaid, underappreciated, bouncing aimlessly through life looking for our true calling. We related to this man's story and strive to have what he had now. Freedom, security, fame, all this from just playing a game. It looks so easy.
My name is Michael Corpy. I'm 24, from Seattle, Washington. I've been suspended from 2 colleges in the last 5 years on account of stuff I did gambling online. The first night I played, it was a rainy afternoon after school. Some of my friends who had already kind of gotten into it were playing, and they invited me over, and I was like, sure, sounds like fun. I think I bought in with 5 and left with maybe 13 or something, but I was pretty well hooked from that point on. Online really started when I went to college. Well, just about every spare minute I would spend holed up in my room at my desk in front of my computer, either playing free rolls or playing with whatever change I had. I think that semester I had like a 1.6 or 1.8 GPA after graduating with high school with almost a 4.0. Yeah, I was good. I mean, I would always end up at 0, and I was not good at managing my money, but I would say that I was good at playing. I mean, I had some big swings online. When I say big, I'm talking like I'd buy in for $5 or $10 and win a few thousand in a tournament, and you know, there'd be strings of 3 or 4 days where I'd final table 3 tournaments in that period and end up with 10,000 or something at the end of that, and then a couple days later I'd be back at 0. I don't know if I ever really told myself I want to be a professional poker player, but it was always in the back of my mind, like, yeah, I wanted to do this to make money.
I got started playing poker in December of 2004, and I remember kind of the way it happened was one of my friends, named Matt Amon, came to my house, and he's like a professional poker player now. He came to my house, and we both didn't know anything about poker at the time, and he brought this really ugly looking but really expensive shirt that his grandma got him for Christmas. And he said, hey, he said, if you don't mind putting, because he didn't have a bank account at the time, so, or if you don't mind putting $100 on PokerStars, I will give you this shirt and you can take it back to the store tomorrow and get like $175 cash. So I was like, all right, well that's fine. So I put it on there for him, created an account, and he started playing. And I was just sort of fascinated watching these games. And then I started looking at some of the bigger stakes games and started to see, you know, tens of thousands of dollars like swinging around the internet, you know, just in these massive pots. And I was like, man, I got to start doing this. So I started playing. I just got hooked instantly. I just started playing and made my own deposit. I put 50 bucks in a few times and just tried to learn the game as much as I could.
They called it the moneymaker effect. Every year following the 2003 World Series, the amount of people willing to pay the $10,000 entry fee into the most prestigious poker tournament in the world grew. In just 3 years, in 2006, the amount of entrants increased tenfold to almost 9,000 people, with a top prize of $12 million. It was the highest amount ever paid for a single event in sports or television history. More than that, online poker exploded. New members were signing up every second, depositing their 50 bucks, hoping to one day play on ESPN. Poker went from a game to an industry. Gamblers went from degenerates to professionals. Dusty became leather ass. Michael became an addict.
It started out, I was hanging out with one of my friends, and I didn't have any money to deposit with, so I asked him, hey, can you deposit some money on here? And so he did. And at that point, I didn't have the plan to like steal a whole bunch of money from him. But his information was saved, and once I lost the initial one, you know, it was accessible to me, and there was no way to stop me from clicking, you know, deposit another 20. It wasn't about the money for me. It was about the rush it would give me. Well, let me put it this way. When I have cash on me, one of the first things I think about is how many big blinds it will get me at the table. Over and over again, I would deposit $20, $50, somewhere between there each time. Every time with the intent of winning it back. Of course, that's not what happened.
I started out by going to the golf course every morning at 6 a.m. and I caddied. I would usually make between like $60 and $100 caddying. And so that would get me some money for the day. And then the rest of the day, which, you know, I'd get there at 6 a.m. and be done by 10 in the morning caddying. So I'd spend 10 a.m. to, you know, as long as I can keep my eyes open every night, just playing poker. Eventually what happened about 800 hours, 2 months and 800 hours later, was I emerged with about $20,000. And eventually I had my first $100,000 profitable month, and then I had about 10 more in a row right after that. And so next thing I knew, like within 9 or 10 months, I was like a millionaire. So it was weird. I never really felt like I was like had a lot of money, because I'd never even left my office. I was still wearing, you know, the same stuff I was wearing. I still had the same car. I was still in the same room, same house. I just had a much bigger bank account balance, but I didn't even know what it all meant. All I knew was that money's important to have, and I'm making a lot, having fun, and why would I ever leave this computer screen? I used to work for nothing. Like, there's no way I can leave this computer, you know, making this kind of money. Like, who am I to turn down? Like, basically, this computer's offering me the ability to make, you know, at least $1,000 an hour.
So I admitted it, and it was a case of admitted guilt, and there was an honor council and everything, and there was a trial, and it turned out that I was suspended indefinitely with the opportunity to reapply in a year, provided that I follow through with all the sanctions. But needless to say, I didn't reapply to that school. I finally figured out that gambling wasn't for me. But if I didn't stop, I'm pretty convinced that I would wind up in jail. If I weren't on private campuses, I would be in jail right now.
Donkey is like a not so loving term for a poker player who basically isn't very good. They'll call him a donkey. And you'll hear people at the tables like, oh, hee-haw, and you know, stuff like that. It's amazing that, to me in poker, that stuff like that exists, because it's one of those things where ultimately your bad players are your customers. So why you would ever try and, you know, upset your customer makes no sense to me.